So what are our choices if we want to build bone density and improve our overall strength and physical health? Well, we're going to use a construction analogy from here on out to explain the 3 essential components to building your strongest self. Essentially, the 3 must-haves to building any strong structure, including our bones. So, number 1, we have to have workers show up. We have to have workers, and the harder they work, the better our project is, right? Physical activity and osteogenic loading are absolutely vital to trigger or stimulate our workers, our bone builders, our osteoblasts to create new healthy bone tissue. We need quality materials at the job site. Proper nutrition and supplementation are critical to supply the building blocks for our workers to construct from. And ideally, we need good weather. Chronic stress and inflammation are the 2 biggest contributors of health challenges today, creating an internal storm, if you will. This can make it very difficult for our bodies to rebuild and regenerate efficiently. So we will learn that without the proper physical stimulus to keep those osteoblasts, guys, working, the body cannot build bone from raw materials alone, and vice versa. And just like a construction project, we have to have the workers and their materials show up to the job site every day to build any kind of structure, and everything goes better with good weather. So let's get into it. The second component to building your strongest self, over and above osteogenic loading and kind of stimulating our workers to get to work and work really hard, they have to have material to build from. So quality materials for our workers in the form of proper nutrition and supplementation. One of the biggest contributors to poor health today, outside of stress and inflammation, that we don't eat enough quality food. And the human body is truly miraculous, capable of incredible feats of regeneration and rebuilding, but it does require clean and constant building blocks, in our case, food, in the form of proteins, carbohydrates, good fats, vitamins, and minerals to be readily ingested. If not, we start to break down, and our foundation will start to break down as well. And I will tell you, while food intake and nutrition are incredibly intricate and complex, the purpose of today's webinar is the KISS analogy. We're just going to keep it simple, silly. We're going to come at this with a common sense approach, and we're going to start by reviewing the 5 main food groups and the 2 primary purposes of food. And there really are only 2 purposes of our food. So our 5 main food groups that we can consume that work to support our body's processes are meats, nuts, and seeds, grains, dairy, fruits, and vegetables. And those 5 main food groups can be broken down into only 2 categories. Specifically, the 2 purposes of our food: energy and nourishment, and detoxification and regeneration. So energy and nourishment primarily comes from the first 3 food groups: meats, nuts, and seeds, grains, and dairy. And they primarily provide the body with protein, carbohydrates, and fats. And these protein, carbohydrates, and fats provide our body with energy measured in the form of calories, and they provide the nourishment for building and maintaining our structure at a cellular level, all the way up to our main structure of the skin covering of the body. Detoxification and regeneration primarily is supported through vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. And the vast majority of vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants are found in our plants. They're in our fruits and our veggies. These are necessary to support the detoxification and regeneration processes, including bone building, along with immune function, blood clotting, fluid balance, and virtually every other cellular process in the body. Our vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants need to be obtained through our food, like I said, primarily our plants, our fruits and veggies, or they must be supplemented if you're not a big plant eater. And we typically need about 7 to 9 servings per day of vegetables and about 3 to 5 servings per day of fruit, which can be tough to get. So putting it all together, I kind of like to talk about these building blocks, if you will, as kind of like your orchestra of nutrients. There's 4 primary building blocks to provide the raw materials our bodies need to rebuild and regenerate, specifically bone tissue, but all tissue in the human body. So what do we need to be eating or consuming on a regular basis to support the building at a cellular level, the nutrients for our strongest self? Vitamins and minerals from plant foods are fruits and veggies, good fats, and healthy protein. And these 4 building blocks are the materials necessary not just for building our bones, the foundations of our body, but they're also all of the materials necessary for building and regenerating every other system in the body. So when we support our foundation through the foods that we consume, we support our entire body. Every other body system is benefited as well. So a visual for you guys are all going to be getting a picture of these slides. And so this is Dr. Mark Hyman's food pyramid, and it's a very different take on the food pyramid from our USDA food pyramid. And if you can see here, just general guidelines of what your plate should look like are the most important, starting at the bottom, going all the way to the peak. Plant foods, our veggies, and then our healthy fats and our protein. That's what your plate should be full of. And then comes fruits and starchy veggies. So our first probably 2/3 to 3/4 of this food pyramid is proteins, fats, and our plants. That's what your plate should be full of, and all the rest of the stuff, all the rest of the options out there comes secondary. So let's move on and talk about supplementation. Supplements are just that. So I'm going to start out with a little bit of a soapbox on supplementation. They are meant to supplement a good diet, to bridge the gap of what we're not getting or consuming on a regular basis. They are not meant to replace healthy choices. However, you cannot supplement your way to optimal health if you're eating food that's highly processed and inflammatory on a regular basis. So first and foremost, we've got to pay attention to our diet, guys. Supplementation then is on top of that. So having said that, do we need to supplement? And the short answer is yes, we do. And then the second is, what do we need to supplement? And again, we're going to keep it simple, silly. KISS. So talking supplements is where I like to take a very minimalistic approach and common sense. I always like to say that we have to give our workers their framing materials first. Their 2x4s and their trusses and all the unfun stuff needs to come first. Our basic building blocks before we get fancy, before we deliver the furniture and start to have all these fancy and the endless options of supplementation that's out there. So the essential supplements, the boring supplements, the basic building blocks that we need to be considering is a multivitamin and omega-3 fatty acids. Every single person needs to be taking a very well-formulated, comprehensive multivitamin that mimics our food, and an omega-3 fatty acid, a fish oil for the anti-inflammatory properties. And if you supplement with these 2 first, you can cover about 90% of the raw materials that you need without having to add much more, unless you have specific gaps in your diet, like a food allergy, or if you're vegan or vegetarian and don't get a whole lot of protein, or you have specific health challenges like bone density issues or a diagnosis of osteoporosis. So an example of that would be, we would need to be on a really good multivitamin and omega-3 fatty acid. If you have osteoporosis, looking at your diet and what's in your multivitamin, we may need to consider additional calcium supplementation, D3, and K2 for bone health specifically. You have a lot of malabsorption issues, or you have a lot of gut issues, we may need to consider looking at some probiotics or some digestive enzymes. If you have diabetes, we may need to consider looking at some MCT oils or some curcumin. But those come secondary. Those come after you've delivered your basic building blocks, your raw materials to start that building. And the best way to pick a really good multivitamin or an essential fatty acid, or really anything that's on the shelf, is to use 4 categories to determine a well-formulated supplement. It's absorbability, the beneficial quantities of what's in that supplement. If there's any competition, so an example of that would be calcium and magnesium should never be taken together. They compete for absorption. But calcium and vitamin D need to be taken together because they enhance absorbability. So That's how we pick our supplementation here at Osteostrong. It's how I advised my patients back in clinical practice to be looking. And we use this ABCs of Optimal Supplementation quiz. And there's some questions to just look at your multivitamin. A stands for absorption, B is beneficial quantities, ABCS, is for competitions and synergies. And you just take a look at the ingredient list on any supplements that are in your cabinet. If they pass the test, if they pass this quiz, awesome. If not, we need to look for something better. So you were going to be emailed this quiz for you to look at what's in your cabinet and for you to be able to analyze what you're currently taking. Or if you're an Osteostrong member, talk with your session coach at your next session to get a copy of this. This will make sure that your body can actually absorb and utilize what you're currently taking, and so that you don't waste your money or have a false sense of security if what you're taking simply isn't going to work. Now, because of the ABCs of supplementation, Osteostrong's chosen brand is Calton Nutrition. The Calton Nutrition multivitamin, omega-3 fatty acid, calcium, D3, and K2 all meet the ABCs criteria. And really, this is just to ensure that our members can avoid the overwhelm of the product shelves that are out there, that they're getting the best raw materials, and they can maximize their body's building potential for what they're doing here with the osteogenic loading. And our members can actually usually get rid of a significant number of things they're taking that they simply don't need because everything's combined in a way that they can eliminate what's in their shelf.